when we go outside, there's a lot to see. But especially in our world, there's a lot to see that is straight lines. I'm talking about architecture. Architecture and roads and lampposts and so many things are straight lines. And then you have the organic shapes of trees, oak trees, branches, leaves, all that in juxtaposition with the two is great. I love that. If I'm in the forest and I see only trees, I'm not that inspired. But if I'm in a city and I only see straight lines, I find that a little bit boring too, to tell you the truth. Now mostly when you are, for example, in New York City, you see a lot of people walking, which is an organic shape as well. Cars are not straight lines. So those two together make for an interesting composition. Now you might be worried that you don't know architecture, you don't know vanishing points, you don't know any of that, and it makes you very insecure. Always think of the railroad tracks that go to the horizon, right? They end in a dot. They start out very wide and then go to the end. That is basically all you need to know of vanishing points. That is a vanishing point. Does the railroad really end in a point? No. But it's our perception of seeing that railroad tracks like that. The same with housing. And we're going to look at the demonstration, how that works, because when you understand it, you're less intimidated by what you see out there. And I would suggest you bring the viewfinder and you learn how to measure. Today we're going to learn how to measure the straight lines that we see. And you might practice that indoors because it's more manageable. There's so much out there when you're plein air, it's called plein air, that it's harder. When you're indoors, you see a door, you see a window, you can figure out the relationship between those. Because that's basically what we're doing. Remember in the beginning that I said we're talking about the edges, we're talking about the negative space or the spaces, the shape. We're talking about relationships. These are all the relationships that you can kind of measure. And it's super important to understand that. It will help you forever, together with the viewfinder. And then, again, the shading, if you squint, look through your eyelashes, you get rid of all the details because there's just too many details. We talked about this, that I used to have glasses to see focused in the far away. And one day I thought, I don't want to know what the details are far away. I, on purpose, have a blurred vision. And guess what happened? Now I see so sharp all the way to the horizon that it's amazing. I never need glasses anymore to read even a license plate. It's amazing. I mean, I think your eyes get trained that way. But so if you have glasses and you can read close up, just forget about the glasses. You don't need them. Far away is blurred anyway. In paintings, in drawings, far away is soft, has no contrast, is mystic. That's how you create depth. But let's look first now at a demonstration when you have a house, how the vanishing points of a house work. And I will put a railroad track next to it so you understand it a little bit. I hope I can make this clear. Don't make a career of trying to understand this. It is really not that hard to understand. It's 2 points on the horizon that will create a consistency of all the parallel lines that go to that same point. That's all you need to know. Let's go look at the demonstration. This is the drawing at Philippi Park that we were doing last week. And for me, it's not finished, but I ran out of micron. It became so thin that it was too gray. Everything is actually too gray. So I will add some black watercolor to it to finish it the way I would like to see it. You almost had the same viewpoint, and now we're going to look in detail at trees, how the blurred vision would be for the trees, the squinting, in combination of the architecture. And my next demo is a drawing I made in the botanical gardens in Amsterdam, where I was over the summer. The point is, and I really want to stress that with you, is that you measure, you eyeball all the measurements, all the relationships from the strangest points to see if everything is in alignment with each other. So you start somewhere very light, super light, and I hope you can see it enough on the demonstration. And then you connect whatever you see. So you ballpark it first, and then you're going to measure. And I'm not talking measure with your pencil, but with your eyes. If you have a plumb line and it goes straight down, what all is in alignment with that same point, with all the points together? Let's have a look at my picture that I have in the botanical gardens in Amsterdam. This is my setup. So if you squint, you see the darkest part and you see the lighter part. You see where the shadow is, where the sun hits the floor. That's where we're looking at. I'll show you a little bit the surroundings, but I'm going back to that point where I'm going to draw. This tree is actually pretty beautiful, but I want to have some architecture in it. So I sit down, order a cup of coffee, having actually the time of my life, and start to draw. And again, very light, I'm drawing everything in I see, and the darkest areas I vaguely just hatch and crosshatch. The surroundings of the trees, you see how I do a scribbly line? It's just an outline of the tree where I think it is. But the tree has light parts and it has dark parts. Don't think of a tree, okay, I know how it looks, and it's like a ball on a stick. It's not. It has distinct darker values and lighter values. But I let the tree go around the architectural elements as well, so I have a better grip on the whole situation. And I think that's the way to do it. Also with the Philippi Park drawing, if you do them both and the shadows are a negative shape as well, then it's a lot easier to get the outline of the tree vaguely somewhere. It should be like this. Some of you are good at trees, some of you are good at architecture. I would really strongly suggest you do them together at all time. So let's look at it. Again, you can erase, you can adjust. Sometimes I leave certain things because I've adjusted enough and I'm just tired of it. But I do my very best to be as accurate as possible, because that's also the fun of it. That's the challenge, and that is I chose a beautiful spot, and for some reason I want to capture that beauty. And part of it very often is the shadow. I hope you can see how the architectural abstract shapes are helping me with the definition of the trees. I do them, like I said, together. And then it's the values that are super important. The values are actually the negative shapes. I will let you watch this a little bit. I'm also going to speed up the videos so that you don't have to watch everything too long. Starting with the outline, you can see I do the outline and I fill it in with a certain value. And now I really do know where everything is, or at least I accept wherever I have put it. And I start with the foreground, then I work my way. That very dark spot that you saw in the beginning, I already gave it a value very light, but I know this is going to be the darkest. You also know that the sun is moving everything. So in a way, I have to be fast. And in a way, all the shadows need to be marked. The sun, where the sun hits it exactly, that all needs to be marked very thin before I sit too long. Because, and I saw you guys doing that. Oh, yeah, the shading. Oh, the shade. The sun has moved. Everything looks different now. That is interesting as well as it is also a challenge. And I think that always goes together. See, this is the outline of the darkest part of that tree. It will be a lot darker, but for right now, this is what it is, because there's also open spots in that tree. And I don't want to make it solid black from the start. It's all hatching and cross hatching. If you have watercolor ink or paint, then you can do that too, but do it very light and let it dry. Let it dry, go over it with the micron, and know where your values are to start with. So this takes a lot of squinting. The squinting is super important. And like I see here, this is how I do trees. Outline. It's not a straight line. And then it has super dark values. The sun hits it at the top very often, and at the bottom it is very, very dark. But not straight dark. It's not a solid piece of shape. It has layers of leaves that are visible, leaves that disappear. Draw a couple, give the suggestion of some of the leaves, and then work your way towards the darkest dark. I hope this makes sense. We're going to practice this a little bit more, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the architecture. Another thing I want to point out is that not every tree is the same. And when they're far away, it's more blurred, so you deal more with values. But the leaves of every tree are different. You have, for example, here the umbrella tree, which has distinct leaves, or the banana tree for that matter. They have distinct leaves. If you see an oak tree, they have tiny, tiny leaves. So then you work more in values of a bunch of these leaves. Also, the oak trees always have barks or stems or trunks that you can see. So it's a bunch of small leaves together, which makes a value, and it has a bark. Other trees, like the palm tree, also have distinct leaves, almost like a fan. They're fan shaped. Study the tree up front in detail so that you're not too surprised when you see a certain tree. here in the Netherlands, I'm not really sure what trees they all are. I know the trees in Florida by now, and I try to draw the suggestion of the leaf, one leaf or two leaf or a bunch of leaves, to give the idea, to give the feeling of that certain tree. So let's look at all this a little bit more up close later with the palm tree and the oak trees, plus the banana tree. Banana trees have beautiful leaves. Study them up close so that you know what's going on. So actually it's endless. If you sit down longer, you can work more and more. But let's look at some architectural principles. And here is the principle of a house. And there's always a horizon. Even if you don't see the horizon because there are trees, there's always a horizon. And remember that I said if you see the railroad tracks, they disappear in the horizon. That point where it hits the horizon, it's called a vanishing point. It's not really vanishing, it's just for your eyes. The perception of the perspective is the vanishing point. A house has that same point on the horizon. And I'm going to explain it once and then you can forget about it because it all seems very complicated, but it's really not at all. I'm eyeballing stuff now. It's not really, I'm going to adjust it later, so don't get all upset about it. This is the principle of the house. The door and the window and the roof will go like the railroad tracks to the same point. And just remember it when you sit down and draw, you see windows that you know that are parallel to one another. Adjust them that they all go to the same point. Your eyes are straight, are at the level of the horizon. Just remember that. That's all you need to know. The rest we leave to architects. We don't want to necessarily be architects. Your eye level, people are on eye level. The eyes are at the level of the horizon. So all of this, all these lines go to that same point. Look at your drawing now and see if that is true. If you have a little window in the door, the lines are not parallel, they go under this angle. That goes to that same point. If you have two or three windows in a row, they're not really the same blocks. They disappear to that same point. I hope this makes sense. Ask me any questions if you do have questions about this. But whatever you're drawing, know that this is how it goes. I'm adjusting it here. And you always need to adjust if you see there's something not quite right. Because that gives you the feeling of, nice drawing, but what is wrong with it?
And I think these are one of the things that are very important, just like the symmetry of a vase or other things that an oval, for example, that need to be in order. There's a lot you can learn about that. All these lines, the vertical lines, are 100% parallel. But the horizontal lines are not 100% parallel, just so you know. Of course, there's exceptions. Old houses, crooked houses. There were many houses in Amsterdam that were as crooked as possible. And you need to know that. Just don't draw it because you think it is so. Draw what you see.